Welcome back to the Snowpoint cast. Today we're going to be taking a look at a deck from the RS-PK format, Raieggs. So the particular list that we're going to be looking at today is actually Bert Wolters' list. So Bert played in one of the RS-PK Snowpoint circuit tournaments in the Snowpoint circuit Discord, and he actually won with this list. There's one small change that's actually not super relevant that I have that Bert doesn't have, and that's just because of I don't have these cards. So let's get right into that. So it's actually a Pikachu line, which is really convenient because that's what we're going to be starting off with. So you're going to be playing 4 Pikachu Delta species. So the one that I have here has 50 HP. For one colorless, Tail Whap does 10, and then for a metal and double colorless, Steel Headbutt does 30. Flip a coin. If heads, this attack does 30 damage plus 10 more damage. There's another Pikachu Delta species that I actually think is a good inclusion as a one of. Bert played 2 in his list, but it has a paralyzed flip attack. So being able to parastall if you're in a position where you're, just have to paralyze to set up, or your opponent's putting on too much pressure, that's a really nice option to have. And so Bert played 2, but the downside of these guys is they have 40 HP instead of 50. So the really big deal with that is Arcanine X. So Arcanine X can snipe 20 twice, and it just kills a Pikachu in 2 hits instead of 3. So it's kind of a big deal. So I think that playing a 3-1 split is totally warranted because having that option is really good, but also the 40 HP is not as good as 50 for sure. They're also playing 4 Raichu Delta species, so this card is really solid. So 70 HP, which is not the most, but Free Retreat, which is really clutch, and then Zap for 1 colorless does 20 damage to each Pokemon that has Poke Powers or Poke Bodies, both yours and your opponents, but you don't play any, so it just hits your opponents for powers or bodies, which is just a great attack for 1 colorless. You put a special metal on there, and then all of a sudden it has 80 HP, and it's just dealing like tons and tons of spread. Really solid spread attack. And then Metallic Thunder is a really good finish up attack as well. So for metal colorless, Metallic Thunder does 50, and then it gives you the option to discard 2 metal energy attached to Raichu, and if you do, the base damage is 90 instead of 50. So really good at finishing stuff off after you've spread a bunch. And then you're also playing an Exeggutor line, which actually complements the Raichu pretty well. So Exeggcute, Delta species, is a fighting type. So roll out, 1 colorless does 10, and then Pebble Throw for a fighting colorless. Choose one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, does 20 damage to that Pokemon. So Pebble Throw is like, okay, I've been in situations where I've actually used Pebble Throw, and it's been impactful later just because you are a spread deck. So spreading is kind of the name of the game. You're playing these guys to play Exeggutor. So Exeggutor Delta species is a super solid card, 80 HP, fighting type, which is kind of nice because gives you a little more type spread. Some dark decks are really solid. Dark Tyranitar, in particular, Bomb Tars, kind of scary. So being able to have a fighting type to kind of have a shot against that is really good, because Bomb Tar is one of your tougher matchups. So the first attack, Delta Circle, does for 2 colorless, does 10 plus 10 more damage for each Pokemon you haven't played that has Delta on its card. So you max out at 70, which is really pretty decent for 2 energy, and it's just another good cleanup attack after you've spread to a bunch of Pokemon. And then Split Bomb also just fits in with that spread synergy. So for a fighting double colorless, choose 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack does 30 damage to each of them. So a lot of the times, the name of the game in this deck is going to be spreading with Zap or Split Bomb until you go down. Delta Circle is definitely really good in a lot of situations, but you play a lot of like comeback cards like Rocket's Admin and POW Hand Extension and Scramble Energy. So being able to just spread and not worry about like taking knockouts until you have a board set up where you can just keep taking knockouts is one of the really nice parts about this deck, and both Exeggutor and Raichu do that pretty well. Okay, so starting to get to the support Pokemon, you're going to be playing 4 Holon's Castform. The Holon's Castform serves 2 purposes in the deck. The first is a draw setup Pokemon. So Castform's got 50 HP, colorless type, Delta draw for 1 colorless, count the number of Pokemon you have in play that has Delta on its card, draw up to that many cards. So just with Holon Mentor lets you set up and draw a bunch of cards at the beginning of the game. And then also Holon's Castform has the added bonus of being able to be an energy. So let's say you have an Exeggutor up here. If you already have an energy on the Exeggutor, let's say you have a double rainbow energy, I have a Castform in my hand. Something I could do is I attach Castform, and then I have the 2 rainbow energy, but it has to have an energy attached already, and then that energy goes back to your hand. So kind of a nice energy consistency bonus there. Your basic Pokemon search, Holon Mentor especially, can also provide you some energy, so that's actually kind of nice. And then speaking of Holon Mentor providing energy, that's also why you play 2 Holon's Magnemite. So Holon's Magnemite, 40 HP, metal type, linear attack, which I've actually used a fair amount when I start Holon's Magnemite because it just is decent spread. So for 1 metal, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, and it just does 10. So if you don't have anything else to do or anything else to attach to, linear attack's actually not that bad. So Magnemite has the same thing, except you don't have to have an energy attached already. You can just attach it as a colorless. So if you have nothing in your hand but a mentor, at least you're getting that attach off on your first turn, which is actually kind of really clutch. Okay, getting to the trainers, you play 4 Holon Transceiver. So Holon Transceiver is a super good card in any Holon deck. So search your deck for a supporter card that has Holon in its name, show it to your opponent, put it in your hand, shuffle your deck afterward. You can also search your discard pile for a supporter that has Holon in its name. So it just keeps your supporter line a little bit more consistent. Hitting that early mentor is really important, and your late game supporters become a little bit more consistent with this as well. There's playing 4 Cessation Crystal. So this is one of the added RS-PK only cards that this deck gets, and it's a massive buff because not only are you hitting your opponent for powers and bodies with the Raichu, but you're also shutting them off with Cessation Crystal. So you're punishing your opponent a lot for putting in Pokemon with bodies or powers, which is really good. And there's so many good Pokemon in this format with amazing powers and bodies. It has to be active. The Cessation Crystal, if it's a tool, test your active Pokemon, then no Pokemon in play gets any powers or bodies, but you don't play any, so it really doesn't matter to you. So kind of a really nice lock option to shut your opponent off, slow your opponent down a little bit. And then, like I was saying, you're also kind of a comeback deck because of how much you're spreading. So POW hand extension is, I really like this inclusion that Bert put in his list. I haven't really seen any Raieggs list with more than 1 POW. I've seen like single POW, but I think 2 is really good because you just have that option to spread, and you go down and then all of a sudden you're in control of the board. So POW hand extension, you can only use this card if you have more prize cards left than your opponent. Move 1 energy attached to the defending Pokemon to another one of your opponent's Pokemon, or switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with one of their active Pokemon. So you can either use it as like a catcher effect to bring up a benched Pokemon or move their energy. And if you have 2, this is kind of a pro play, more in Bomb Tar, but it's actually really good in this deck too, is you can go POW hand extension, move an energy to the benched that has another energy, second POW hand extension, bring up that Pokemon with all the energy, and then if you have the option to kill it that turn, that just makes for a really powerful swing turn that can potentially wipe your opponent's energy off their board, which is pretty deadly. You're also playing 2 Pokemon Retrievers, so Pokemon Recovery is good. Your lines are pretty thick, but your Pokemon also go down pretty quick because they're pretty low HP. I mean, 70 and 80 is not bad for a Stage 1, but it's definitely not as tanky as some of the Stage 2s in the format. So Pokemon Retriever, search your discard pile for a basic Pokemon and evolution cards. You may either show 1 basic Pokemon or evolution card to your opponent and put it in your hand, or show a combination of 3 basic Pokemon or evolution Pokemon and shuffle them into your deck. So nice to be able to get some lines back. If you need some energy, shuffling back the Castforms and Magnemites and then going for a mentor is good. Or also, if you just need a Raichu really bad to attack, you can just get it into your hands so that you can evolve it and then potentially attack that turn. We're also playing 4 Cursed Stone because we just like punishing powers in this deck. So Cursed Stone is a stadium. At any time in between turns, each player puts 1 damage counter on his or her Pokemon that has a Poke Power. So just some more spread on those Poke Power Pokemon. Before I continue, I will say something that I have seen in this deck that's kind of a cool tech option that you definitely have the option of putting in. Ancient Technical Machine Rock. It's kind of a really cool card. It just lets you de-evolve all your opponent's Pokemon. It's honestly not even necessary, I don't think, in this deck. It's kind of win more, but against some matchups, especially Stage 2 matchups, like, Gardevoir Delta or some cards like that are just, they have the option to rare candy. It can be a really good meta call just to be able to de-evolve those. So kind of a neat tech card if you're expecting some Stage 2 decks in your meta. Okay, so moving on to the supporter cards, we're going to be playing 4 Rockets Admin. So this just makes a lot of sense. Like I said, you're going to be going down Pokemon before you start going up prizes most of the time. And Rockets Admin just punishes your opponent for taking a lead. So each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck and then draws up to their prize cards. So if they take 2 prizes on you before you take a prize, they're going to be drawing max 4, where you get a shuffle draw 6. So it's a decent draw option for you, but it's more of like a hurtful disruption option against them. So kind of a super solid card in this deck. Bert, up most decks I saw before, played 3 of this card, and Bert played 4, which I really, really like. I think 4 admin is just too good in this deck not to play. Also play 3 Holon Mentor. So Holon Mentor is one of the Holon supporters, obviously. Discard a card from your hand. If you can't do that, you can't play this card. Search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon that have 100 HP or less, so that's all of your basic Pokemon in your deck. Then show them to your opponent, put it in your hand. So lets you get Exeggcute, Pikachu, Castform, or Magnemite, which is just consistent for setup as well as energy. So just a really great card. That's why you play 3 in combination with 4 Transceiver. Just lets your turn ones be a little bit more consistent. If you see a Mentor in your start hand, oftentimes you're able to play a really good game where you're able to set up. So it's just nice to hit it consistently. Also playing 2 Holon Researcher. So this is more of a evolution setup card. So Holon Researcher says, discard a card from your hand. Every Holon supporter has that. And then search your deck for either a metal energy card, which is kind of really clutch in some situations. There are some situations where you just need an energy, especially a special metal sometimes saves your Raichu from being KO'd. If your opponent is able to hit 70 and you're able to just make it an 80 HP with the metal, because it's a metal Pokemon, it just takes 10 less damage. So that's kind of nice. Or get a evolution card with Delta on its on it, and then show it to your opponent, put it in your hand. So it also finds Exeggutor and Raichu. And again, with the consistency of Holon Transceiver, early game or late game, it just lets you have access to those, which is kind of clutch. You're also playing a one of Holon Scientist. A lot of Holon Transceiver lists play one of Scientist because it's just super solid. Discard a card from your hand, and then if you have less cards in your hand than your opponent, draw to match them. So can be really good. This format definitely allows for some really, really large hand sizes, especially with that discard off the start. You can, let's say you have 3 cards in your hand, your opponent has like 8. You play this card, discard 1, now you have 1 card in your hand, you're drawing 7 for turn, which is really good, especially with the accessibility of Holon Transceiver. You're just able to hit it kind of whenever your opponent has a big hand difference than you. Also playing one Holon Adventurer, so another one of that most transceiver lists play, or Holon builds rather. So Holon Adventurer, discard a card from your hand, draw 3 cards. If you discarded a Pokemon that has Delta on its card, draw 4 cards instead. So that's not so bad to be able to discard these guys and draw 4. Honestly, discard a Pokemon, draw 4, especially with your 2 Retriever. Usually that doesn't matter, and sometimes you can, have an extra Exeggcute or an extra Pikachu that you don't need, and you can just ditch it to draw an extra card, which is nice. They're also playing one Steven's Advice. So Steven's Advice, draw a number of cards up to the number of your opponent's Pokemon in play. If you have 7 or more cards, including this one in your hand, you can't play this card. So, decent draw if your opponent has a really big board. Like I was saying, Holon Mentor is kind of a staple setup card in this format. So if your opponent drops a Mentor and a Pokemon and you only have a Steven's Advice, at least you're drawing for like 5 off of the supporter. Max, it'll net you 6, but honestly, most times it'll be like 4 to at least 3, but like usually 4+ cards off of a Stevens, which is not so bad. Okay, getting to the energy lines, we're going to be playing 4 special metal energy. So special metal, if it's attached to a metal Pokemon, Pikachu or Raichu, that Pokemon takes 10 less damage from attacks. So kind of good to be able to, stack and just protect it a little bit. If your opponent is trying to chip damage you, like let's say they're trying to hit you for like 40 and then 40 again to 2-shot your Raichu. If you have a special metal energy attached, they hit 30-30 and then they don't 1-shot or don't 2-shot you. They have to 3-shot you, which when you're a spread deck and you're hitting them for zap spread a lot, that could be that extra turn can be a really big deal because you get an extra 20 damage on all of their powers or bodies on their board. So really good to keep your Raichus alive for sure, and also powers up Metallic Thunder. Speaking of powering up Metallic Thunder, Scramble Energy does that in a single attach, which is really powerful. The Scramble Energy provides 1 colorless energy, can only be attached to evolution Pokemon. However, if you're down on prizes, there's a lot of cards in this deck that if you're like down on prizes, kind of just helps you out with. If you're down on prizes, it's worth 3 energy of any color. So that fulfills Metallic Thunder in a single attach. So you can go from having an empty Raichu to being able to attack for 90. You just discard the Scramble, and then that's a ton of damage out of nowhere. So that's kind of one of the reasons that you like to go behind usually, is because it gives you access to Scramble Energy, which is super nice. You're also playing the last year energy, playing 3 double rainbow energy. So this energy is worth 2 colorless energy, and the Pokemon that this card is attached to do 10 less damage with attacks. So not super good, but really good for powering up Metallic Thunder. If you have 1 special metal on there, you can just attach a double rainbow and then discard the double rainbow with Metallic Thunder, and then you're dealing 80, which is really solid. Honestly, the -10 is a bit of a bummer, but the fact that you can just attach, discard double rainbow for 80, and then do it again next turn can be a lot of pressure for sure. So double rainbow, really nice. Not so bad on Exeggutor either, but honestly, the -10 applies to the benched as well. So split bump doing 20-20 for 3 energy is not that great, but it can be good to fulfill a Delta Circle for 1 energy for sure. Okay, well, this has been Raieggs for the RS-PK format. Bert Wolters list. Shout out to Bert. Really solid list. I like this list a lot. Yeah, if you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you next time.